Hey guys, take a look at some of these clips. If you've ever played Overwatch, you may have noticed that the characters move a little differently than other video game characters. They seem to bend, twist, and distort into these bizarre shapes and proportions when you watch them in slow motion. Now, I was wondering, what is going on here? And more importantly, how is this working behind the scenes? So today, let's find out how the animators at Overwatch broke the rules and made a very special technique that changed the animation world forever. Welcome to the next episode of Stylized Station. Now, before we get into the real juicy stuff, we have to learn about something called smear frames. Now, I've talked about this before, but for those who are new to the channel, in 2D animation, smear frames are exaggerated drawings that stretch, distort, or smear the character's form across the frame in the direction of movement. This is particularly effective for fast movements like a character throwing a punch or an object swiftly moving across the screen. You can probably guess that Overwatch animators use smear frames to get their desired look, but the answer isn't nearly that simple. In traditional 3D animation, an animator can control a character by manipulating something called a skeleton. This skeleton is a custom rig made up of interconnected parts called bones. The animator can use these bones to pose the skeleton at important moments in the action. These are called keyframes. Once the animator sets these key poses at the keyframes, the animation software takes over. It uses a process called interpolation to fill in the movements between these keyframes. But there's already an issue. This process of interpolation means that there will always be a smooth transition between two poses, making smearing completely impossible. So, how did the Overwatch developers get around this? In addition to having basic skeletons, like I explained earlier, the animators at Overwatch added special bones, affectionately dubbed Noodle Bones, to the characters' skeletons on top. These special bones provide animators with the freedom to modify the scale, movement, and rotation of these bones without disrupting the underlying base skeleton. What this means is that the animators aren't solely reliant on interpolation to fill in the gaps between keyframes. With the use of these noodle bones, animators can enlarge, stretch, bend, and twist any bone at any point in the animation, giving them full freedom and control over the look of each individual frame. This flexibility allows them to perform feats like expanding Cassidy's face in a ridiculous way to mimic smear frames, or elongating Tracer's torso to extraordinary lengths, all without disturbing the rest of the skeleton. These rigs also make it possible to bulge and squeeze any part of the character. When we examine Zenyatta's attack animation in slow motion, you'll probably notice that his arms are always bulging, providing a more dynamic and dramatic visual effect as he does his basic attack pattern. But the bendy animations aren't the only thing I'm curious about. Overwatch also has some of the most satisfying environment destruction ever. Destruction in video games is one of the most interesting topics in game design, a careful balance of physics and game performance. So, if you want to learn how this works, and how this works, and how this works, you don't have to wait until next week, because I've already made the next episode on destruction in video games, and it's live right now on Patreon.